Hi, and welcome to the latest, I think it's the 6th. I've lost count.
I've missed a couple.
It's the
whatever.
Rider Rumblings podcast. How's that for labeling right off the start? Nice and smooth, except for that stumble there. We are joined, as we are most of the time, by my worthy colleague, Mr. Murray McCormick, veteran beat writer at the Leader Post regarding all matters Saskatchewan-roughriders. Murray, thank you for being with us. And you had no option, but thank you for being with us anyway.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to enjoying this podcast with you.
And once upon a time, this has been done before. The Riders brought back Frank Tripucka after a bit of a hiatus. They brought back Kerry Joseph after a bit of a hiatus. We have brought back, and are very pleased to have done so, a Leader Post legend and a great friend to us all, resplendent in number 34, Bruce Johnstone. Bruce, thank you for taking the time today.
Well, thanks very much, Rob, and good to see you, both of you, again after these many months that I've been away from the Leader Post, and it's great to be back.
And one of the many cool things about Bruce, and one of the things that I envy, aside from his career, is the fact that he has seen every Rough Rider Grey Cup victory. I'm 3 for 4, Murray's 2 for 4, but Bruce, there can't be many people who are 4 for 4, and I think that's one of the really cool things about your life story.
Well, I think that there's probably a number of people, Bob Mossing probably be one of them, that has been to all of the winning Grey Cups. And I've been to some losing Grey Cups, but I've been to all 4. I was at the 66 Grey Cup with the Lions Band, and I was there of course in 89 and 2007. I was also there in 97, and I saw some
09?
stinkers. 09, 010, or 010. But, it was, as I like to say, they really, my being there doesn't guarantee a win, but if I'm not there, they can't win. So I've got to be at the Grey Cup, and that's the rule I live by.
Does your presence guarantee a win for the podcast then? Can we be that presumptuous and bold?
I would say it's a very good sign that things are going well on the Rider Rumblings podcast.
But you were there in 2009. Were you at the Tony Gabriel game?
No, I was in Mexico.
I was at the Tony Gabriel game.
Yeah,
the second Tony Gabriel game.
Well, I think it's ironic and appropriate that he, in trying to relive that a moment, that he suffered a torn, I think, Achilles tendon or something, didn't he?
Yeah, he was doing it for
reenacting
TV promotion.
The thing. It's like God or somebody saying, you can't do that. You're rubbing the Riders fans' noses in it, and he paid the price for it. So good on him. Such
a wonderful guy, though. And so, Murray, sorry to exclude you from this, but Bruce and I are going
to
I
only moved here in 82. I can't go that far back into the world of the Riders' history, so I'm only got till then, but I was at a few of those games.
Bruce and I are actually going to chat for 25 minutes, and you can nod and go, if you'd like.
Yeah,
so,
okay, sure.
We might as well talk about something contemporary with regards to the Rough Riders, and there's certainly no shortage of topics to digest. There's also a column to digest, which if you stay tuned to the end, you'll see that my lunch today isn't exactly as nutritious as my wife would advise, although she did lend me her shredder.
It'd be loaded with fiber, I guess.
We'll see what it tastes like. My wife lent me her shredder. It's only been used once, and that was when she fed our marriage license into it. So
obviously that didn't work. That didn't work. No.
So it's an easy default every week to discuss quarterbacking, but I think this week especially, Zach Collaros on the 6-game injured list already after suffering a concussion in that really riveting game last week against Ottawa. Brandon Bridge starting already on Friday against the Montreal Alouettes.
Saturday.
Yeah. Sorry, thank you.
It's a tough week. It's a tough week to keep days straight.
We knew it. There was some value in having you here. When they play the Alouettes on Thursday, what to expect from this team? What kind of predicament are they in quarterbacking wise, Mer?
I think they're in the one we kind of expected them to be, and I think we all talked about when Collaros signed. Despite his illustrious background in 14 and 15, he did have a spotty injury history, and here it comes. I don't know about you, and you did the post-mortem. Did you see where he got hit? Is it just accumulation of hits? I couldn't quite figure out which one led to the hit that concussed him.
His last play was the interception in the end zone.
He wasn't hit, I don't think.
He didn't look like he was hit there. There was that one play where he got hit just under the chin or a little bit earlier. But it's tough to really pinpoint, and it's tough to know. And the brain being a delicate enough instrument, you never really know what what is that will trigger something like that. But it's certainly an alarm bell when someone who has a history of multiple concussions is gone that early and is already on the shelf for 6 games. And the sound of it is it'll be the full 6.
The thing is, he wasn't playing particularly well before he got concussed. So it wasn't as if, I wonder if Chris Jones are going to use that as a case to bring in Brandon Bridge to maybe shake things up, because he's had a short leash with Kevin Glenn. But, it's a tough, and to be honest, it's not kind of a Ricky Ray type injury that the whole team is just devastated by what happened. It's kind of like they're taking it in stride, and Brandon Bridge is their guy. And one thing I know, we talked a lot about how the training camp, they had the 1-2 guys and they got a lot of reps. That was for this situation, I think, in case something happened. Maybe Chris Jones, who is getting slammed for a lot of the things that are going on, showed a little foresight in making sure that Brandon Bridge can be as ready to be a starter as he can be, which we'll all find out if he can be one.
The interesting thing is but in doing so, did the limitation, the reps that you give to Bridge, does that take reps away from Zach Collaros, and was he ready? Bruce, was he ready? Tell us.
Well, I think that going back to the original signing of Collaros, that the concern was his fragility. I mean, here's a guy that had missed virtually all or good chunk of last year. He has, and then of course, his 12 losses and so forth. So I mean, or 9, I think it was. He is a guy that this is now his 3rd concussion. That's always a warning sign that, that he's got an injury bug. So I think it's not a surprise that he is not playing. And I think, they certainly were prepared to have, Bridge step in. But by the same token, the hits, as you say, weren't that devastating. There was poor protection. I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, there was almost non-existent. Matador offensive line, I think, is a famous columnist once said.
Yeah, I think it was Bob Hughes.
Yeah.
He's the famous columnist.
Right. So clearly he was getting a lot of hits, and that can't happen. Having said that, there's questions about his arm strength on deep balls. He was pretty effective, I think, in the medium range passes, but I think there's still an open question about whether Collaros is the guy that they should be paying, $450 or whatever it is he's making. So
I still think they had to sign him. I don't think they're in any position to where they were, where he was the best available quarterback. I maintain, and I've told this to Rob many times, if they had a $400,000 quarterback, they're in the Grey Cup last year. I don't think they're trailing behind. I don't think it's that big of a difference. I think they went with the move they had to make, and now they're paying a price that he's injured and for how long it's going to be. But we don't wish any ill will against Zach Collaros. Like the guy, we don't ever want to see anybody get hurt like that. But the fact that he's out and it's Brandon Bridge is in, I personally, I haven't seen enough from Brandon Bridge to say he's a starter in my mind. I watch what he does on the field. I watch his eyes. I watch his feet. I watch how he's chased out of the pocket, how under pressure he runs all the time, where he doesn't necessarily make all of his reads. He hasn't had the chance to be the guy for a week leading up. Maybe that'll make him sharper. But, the Riders don't have any choice. We can debate it all up and down in all different ways.
There's no conversation anymore.
As Chris Jones says, you were pretty close to having a 50% chance of picking the starting quarterback at practice yesterday. And I was darn close. I picked Bridge. So
what's interesting is that for a 6'5" quarterback, his release point is so low that he gets passes knocked down that honestly shouldn't get knocked down when you're a 6'5" quarterback. Is mechanically, I think that's part of the issue with Brandon Bridge.
Yeah, I agree. And he's a great athlete, no question about it. He's got a strong arm, but it's very unconventional. We heard Trevor Harris say, before last week's game that he's been working, with Jamie Elzado with trying to change his mechanics a bit. He's modeled himself after Drew Brees, planting himself and stuff. I don't see Bridge making some of those changes to make him a better quarterback. I mean, he's a great natural athlete, and I think that there's no question that he's got all the things you need. But is he improving or changing his game sufficiently that he can step into that? If Trevor Harris is doing it, then Brandon Bridge probably should be doing that as well. And I don't know that we have anybody around that's going to help him get to that point where he's improving his mechanics.
Well, Steve Walsh has quite the resume.
Yeah.
So this is the time for Steve Walsh to earn his money.
How about on a happier note, a Canadian quarterback starting on Canada Day weekend? They're not playing on Canada Day, which still, I don't understand why there aren't CFL games on Canada Day. But
And he doesn't count against the ratio, which is absolutely stupid.
So we can discuss the whole stupidity of the fact that a Canadian quarterback and the Riders gain absolutely no benefit from that.
Yeah.
And Brandon has quite been, he's embraced, he says that they should be a ratio break. There should be an opportunity. Guys like, so maybe on Canada Day weekend, Brandon Bridge will step up, get the win, and all the young Canadian quarterbacks will say, yeah, we have a chance. I don't have to be a defensive back. I don't have to be running back. I don't have to be a receiver. I can possibly be a quarterback in the CFL if I can go to American college, if I can get trained by American coaches. I can be 6'5". I can be an amazing athlete with a strong arm and can run like crazy. It's
a signal failure of the CFL that we've really only produced a handful of, and very few starting quarterbacks who are Canadian. I mean, it's ridiculous when you think about it, especially someone who grew up with 3-down football, to really only have a handful of these guys playing. And it's because the roster and ratios don't allow or provide no incentive for them to have a Canadian quarterback. So he's really just taking away actually from the Canadian content of the thing, unfortunately.
Even when there was the roster incentive, you very seldom saw that happen. I've delved into it a bit over the years, and one of the issues that keeps getting raised is if a Canadian quarterback stays in Canada, you're not getting the amount of the kind of coaching that a quarterback requires. You're not getting the kind of game situations, even though it is the Canadian game. American college football is a much higher level in terms of competition. Even in the high school ranks in the United States, they've got dedicated coaches, and I'm saying dedicated in terms of their job description is very precise. I'm not questioning the dedication of Canadian coaches, but the high school football mechanism and machine in the United States is geared a lot more to producing elite football players than it is in Canada.
Even if you jump way
how do you come up as a Canadian quarterback when the Americans have that advantage?
When you jump ahead to the CFL, there's no time to develop a Canadian quarterback. Look at Noah Picton in Toronto. Didn't get a rep, but he was there for the learning experience. So good for Noah Picton getting that chance. But during practice, no coach is going to say, I got to give my Canadian guy 20 reps today because I got a game to play on Sunday that I got to get my guy ready to play. There's no time to develop a Canadian quarterback in the CFL. A guy's got to come in there pretty ready to play or he's not going to have a chance. And I don't see that happening on the... Brandon Bridge is a 4-year guy now? Fourth year?
Fourth, 2016. His first start was for Montreal against Saskatchewan.
Yeah, so you think about that. He's had an opportunities to develop and to get reps and stuff, probably more than any quarterback in recent history. And we'll see what he can do. Do we write him off? No.
I mean, but he's certainly shown enough, but there's some things that need to get ironed out. But that's not unlike any quarterback at his stage developmentally. Brandon Bridge is 26 years old. Darian Durant started his first game for the Rough Riders. He was just about 26. It was the second game of the year in 2008, and he turned 26 that August. So he's at a stage where Ron Lancaster came to the Rough Riders, and he was just about to turn 25.
Right.
Ken Austin showed up here and reached, he won a Grey Cup when he was 26.
Yeah, he's not that old. And certainly there's a lot of potential there. There's no question about it. If there was an incentive in the roster rules, that would be a lead pipe cinch that he would be a keeper and a guy that you would want to turn into a first-string quarterback.
And probably starting somewhere by now.
Well, absolutely.
We also
he is starting this weekend. So.
I like to bring up another issue. There's only 2 quarterbacks on the roster. Like Toby Atiga was taking reps yesterday. So the Riders
well,
and Toby and I, we're not the Victoria Lake, and he didn't look that bad. But I think it was just they needed a guy out there to do things at quarterback. They have 2 quarterbacks. One's the Brandon Bridge, David Watford. We saw what he did in his preseason. His second one when Chris Jones gave up on the offensive line, and those 2 guys struggled a bit. But here's the most important position in the field, and the Riders have 2 guys on that spot, and hundreds of mini camps, hundreds of training camps. And they have 2 guys on the roster with them going to a game like this. It just baffles me and befuddles me. And I go, I don't see a reason for it. I don't understand why. But they put themselves in this position that they got 2 quarterbacks playing 1 game.
Yeah, you're 1 hit away from playing somebody who's never played down a professional football in a meaningful situation. And although playing Montreal is that a meaningful situation? I mean, honestly.
Well, hang on, they get paid too. Someone will say that. Someone will say that in the next 2 days.
They'll say all the right things, but honestly, there's a better chance of the Montreal Winged Wheelers defeating the Rough Riders this weekend than the Montreal Alouettes. Well, this is going to be an absolute comedy.
I've learned to never, ever say never in the CFL. So I'm never going to say it's an absolute lock, but it's darn close.
Mortal lock.
Mortal lock.
How do you not beat Montreal?
Because they're coming off
Toby Antiga is playing quarterback.
They're coming off a huge loss. They're coming off of, is Mike Sherman this bad? I don't know. Is it Drew Willie that bad?
I don't think it's a Mike Sherman issue.
I don't think it's a quarterback issue. They have a big and a defensive issue. They have a whole lot of other issues, but I'm not trying to sell tickets. That's not what I'm trying to do, but I'm still not exactly saying this is a mortal lock like you will. I think they're going to win, but that was a pretty bad Montreal team the other night on TV.
It's pretty weird to have it's like the battle of the backups. You've got all, Drew Willie, a former backup here, of course, now in Montreal. You've got, Vernon, Adams, who's there now, formerly on the roster here and formerly in Montreal. And then, of course, you've got Brandon Bridge, a former Montreal backup. So it's, I think you said, Rob, the backup bowl. But so it's really, I guess, a time for some of these guys to step up. I mean, Drew Willie looked good in the beginning of that game, and then he just completely went away from what was working for him, and it just kind of fell apart. And that team has got big problems, probably a lot bigger problems than we've got here. But anybody look in Winnipeg, they had their main guy get knocked out, their Matt Nichols, and then of course Darian Durant decides to retire, and they started this green as grass rookie out of South Dakota, and he looked really impressive. He could have beat Edmonton, and they did.
He's so fast. Rob, pronounce his name, Rob. Tell us his name.
Strevler.
Strevler. Make you lose on that.
He was really impressive, for a guy who's never played, taken a snap in the CFL until, against that game against Edmonton. So, So it can be done. And I think Brandon Bridge, I think hopefully this will be his coming out party and stuff, and we'll see how well he does.
It's going to be no coming out party if the offensive line plays like it did against Ottawa. There's no chance.
Why did they cut Travis Bond?
I don't know. Why did they cut Derek Dennis?
Is a mess.
Why did they cut Roger Aldag? Or Roger Aldag retired. Sorry, yeah. Why did Roger Aldag get to retire? Jim Mikowski.
Derek Dennis didn't do a lot for us.
No, but he looked pretty good.
Now he's smashing guys for Calgary again.
Yeah, I don't know if he wasn't. There's something else going on there. He wasn't motivated to play with us.
I don't think he was in. Well, it's hard. Last guy to point fingers at someone being out of shape, but he wasn't in shape. No. And I know when the Calgary guys played him, they said that he wasn't what he used to be. I think he just didn't fit the system. But Travis Bond, I still don't understand. And I was at training camp, and I'm not professing to be an expert on offensive linemen other than being the size of one. I didn't see anybody outplaying Travis Bond. And if we get further away from that horrible Saturday when Grant was cut and Bag was cut and Bond was cut and no one's cut.
Yeah. I
don't get any idea why Travis Bond was cut. Other than money. And that was obviously a poor decision to cut him for money. And because maybe Darius Bladdock is ready to step up. And I wouldn't be surprised if he played the most of the downs because Jarvis Harrison is not doing good.
That's not a productive use of an American spot on the offensive line.
But if I can just add one more little thing to that. That Saturday, I remember that Saturday when all the cuts came out on Twitter and stuff. I think the Riders went from a home playoff team potential to what that day to back to being, oh my God, they may not make the playoffs. Like that Saturday has such an impact when you look at the fact they haven't scored any touchdowns and Grant and Bag were cut. Well, 2 touchdowns, sorry, no offense. Travis Bond is gone. Chad Owens could have done some things. It just seemed to be.
But nobody's picked up Owens and nobody's picked up Grant. Rob Bag's still recovering, as I understand it.
Well, and I think once again, I mean, you're also paying the price for a $450,000 contract to, that all counts against the cap. So I mean, you can't necessarily keep Travis.
Certainly you got to pay the piper. It happens all the time.
Well, that's right. But I mean, in going out and getting Collaros, then that means you can't do other things. Like maybe it was because of the money that and Bakari Grant. I mean, do you really? I mean, he was a good player for us. Don't get me wrong. I suspect he'll show up someplace. I don't think he's been picked up yet. But having said all that, I don't think our receiving core is still quite strong. And
well, it could be.
It could be.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but there's potential for it to be strong, I think. But but I think it's just the reality of the salary cap. I mean, you can't have guys making close to $500,000 and then have everybody else, free agent signings and stuff like that, like Bond, and continue to go along that route. You've got to economize someplace, I guess.
I guess one factor that hasn't been mentioned with regards to the ever popular Doron Carter situation is they're paying Doron Carter elite receiver money,
Right.
but they're playing him at cornerback. You don't pay a cornerback what you were paying Doron Carter. Why is he playing cornerback? I mean, this you can talk all you want about Stephen McIndoe, perceived or actual strategic deficiencies, and the offensive line's an issue, and now quarterback's an issue. But are you doing your quarterbacks any favors? Are you doing Stephen McIndoe any favors by putting the receiver on your team who is most capable of blowing up a game on defense? Why are they doing this? This is so counterproductive.
I mean, obviously, Chris Jones has this idea that you can turn, defensive players into offensive players and vice versa. He's done it a lot in his career. People he's transformed from receivers like Leonard and guys like that into defensive linemen and stuff. Now, I guess the jury's out as to whether that's been a success or not. And mind you, they were playing in Ottawa. So I guess you could say that it's a partial success. But this idea that you have turned an all-star, most valuable player type receiver like Carter into a okay cornerback is a dubious sort of notion. And I think we saw the result of it. He got an interception for pick six. That's all great. But he got burned. Well, it was a bad pass. He got burned by Deontay Spencer, who he'd been yapping with and stuff like that. So I think overall, he's more of an asset on offense, obviously, than he is on defense. So put him where he can do the most good. And I think that also showed when Shaq Evans ran a kind of a weak pattern, and then there was a pick six going the other way. So that's not entirely his fault. Obviously, Collaros short-armed that a little bit, but there's a problem there.
What Jones has done is he's allowed the other teams to take Doron Carter out of the game.
Yeah,
you can just don't throw to that side ever, and Doron Carter will never be part of a game. On offense, the Riders can make him be part of the offense by throwing the ball to him and making him change the game. You talk about a little bit of the other guys that have made transitions and switching over. Those are here. This is up there. Yeah. This is taking an all-star caliber, arguably the best receiver in the league, and putting him at a position that can be just totally eliminated from the game, removing his impact from everything that's going on. And at first, it was kind of a cool story, and it was kind of neat to have that because there are injuries and stuff. But I said it earlier, there's hundreds of defensive backs out there.
Sure.
There's hundreds of mini camps, and when I go to the ones in Bradenton, there's lots of mini guys going through there, guys going in there, and they could have had an opportunity to play. But I don't get why they don't have a backup.
Memo to John Murphy: find a cornerback.
Sure.
Why haven't they found one already?
Maybe a quarterback too.
Maybe a quarterback too.
And an offensive lineman. And
Travis Bond might be available.
Yeah, Bruce Campbell's out there.
Well, we've reached that time, and one that I'm dreading.
Yes. Do we have to stay for this?
You made leave last week after Doron Carter's pick six against Ottawa. I tweeted that, and this was after writing that a column headlined, Riders well advised to keep explosive Carter on offense, which I still agree with my column, by the way.
Exactly.
But at that moment, at that instant, with that impulsiveness being not presciently exercised, I said, okay, well, I'm going to eat that column. So
here we go.
Lunchtime. Here is the infamous shredder, that of my wife. I almost dropped the shredder. And here is the column. And where's the salt?
So this is Shreddies instead of you.
So you just have to lift
instead of you being
Shreddies. That's awesome.
Instead of you being Fruit Loops for doing this. Right?
Now where do I feed this? Now here we go.
Yeah.
There you go. Turn the right way. There. Yeah, I think that's.
Anyway.
I think Bruce and I can make a decision. You don't have to eat the whole column because you agreed with it. So maybe just half the column.
I'm just gonna have one bite. Anyway, here we go. This is how great journalism is made.
We'll tell this is this gluten free? You think?
I think it might.
Well, the fun part will be watching him try to sort out how to make it work again, and we're not bailing him out.
Open up this. Yeah, just flip that back and stick it in.
There you go.
Try not to stick your hand in the. Yeah. There you go.
Oh, there it goes. Chop, chop, chop.
Okay. Dig in. Just close that.
That is my career right there.
Rob, you have to talk into the mic.
Talk and eat at the same time.
Roughage. This is the worst idea I've had in years.
That's probably the first column you'll be able to stomach in a while.
Ooh. Always.
You want to share?
No. You go ahead. The breakfast of champions.
Sorry about this.
Careful.
This is podcasting at its absolute finest. We could describe now that Rob has just shredded his column.
This is
He's
awful.
now taken pieces of it and he's drinking fine liter post water to choke it down.
Yeah.
And hopefully he will survive, or we're going to have to give him
I don't know if
some.
we give.
This is worse. This is
CPR.
almost as bad as Bassomatic. Remember Bassomatic with Dan Aykroyd when
No,
he
that
put
was
the fish in the
funnier.
blender?
That was funnier.
For Bruce Johnstone, thank you. I'm so sorry you have to see this, Murray.
Well,
Next week you're going to be eating a column. I'll pick one. And
Good. Yeah,
I'm Rob
I have
Vanstone.
nothing to say. There's nothing that can top that.
I was
In
Rob
this-
Vanstone. Thanks for joining us, and we may be back next week.